if anyone wants to start.
Yeah, I can jump in about Politico. I think for us, we really wanted to still show off our culture and community, although we're all remote. And so with the interview process, we've tried to keep it the same, where you'd have a phone interview, you'd meet with a hiring manager, and I would do that via Zoom, meet with the interview panel towards the end, also via Zoom. And we try to work in different ways so you can still connect with kind of who we are at Politico. So we've done a tour of the office, we send videos, we send articles and connect you to people who work on the team as well, just so you can kind of get an idea of what the culture is like. So that's definitely one way we've changed, in addition to, I think, moving a bit faster now because we don't have to coordinate as many on-site interviews. I think is good.
I can speak for Geico. We've done a lot of different changes. Our hiring process is generally still the same. A lot of it, 99% of it is all virtual now, so which is really nice. I know being located in Virginia, we have to coordinate with travel to get students to and from here, so it's nice to take that part out of it and not have to factor in, getting students here, reimbursing for travel, having them stay overnight, things like that. So that's really helpful. The virtual events are a little bit different. I do have to say I do miss being in person and planning different types of fun events that aren't just information sessions or teaching classes or things like that. I do miss that. But it gives you a little bit of different take on virtual. It kind of takes the intimidation factor out of going to a big career fair. Students get to kind of go up to a virtual booth and talk to somebody that they would never get to talk to before. So which I think is a cool opportunity.
I'll jump in about Lockheed next. Similar to Politico and Geico, we're the recruitment process, the full cycle hiring looks the same virtually. See what I did there? So basically it's the same what we did before the pandemic. But I will say on the back end of what Megan was saying with the kind of relaxed feel, there's less pressure for the students. With that, I feel like there's more ambiguity, obviously, on the students.
Kelly, are you still there? Kelly, I don't think I can hear you anymore. Am I the only one?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Ooh, okay. Basically, what I was trying to say was there is that level of ambiguity now. So I was actually, help support a staffing event for Lockheed Martin with Penn State yesterday. And there were so many students that came into the booth that I was helping support, and they really had no sense of direction. So while there is that relaxated feel there, that isn't, that luxury is there now that it's virtual, you need to still have that sense of direction of what you want, that goal that you want to get out of talking to a recruiter at each booth. So.
I second what Kelly's saying, like students that could print off their resume, put on a suit and tie, and just walk into the Bryce Jordan Center and run into a booth and stumble into an internship. You can't do that anymore. Students have to, I know you probably hear this a million times, prepare for the career fairs, but now you can't not prepare, because I've been attending a few career fairs, and when a student messages me and says, "This is my major, what do you have that fits my major?" I'm like, I really can't help you with that. So I second 100% what Kelly's saying, is that it's not about luck. It's not about stumbling into it and seeing what you can find. Students have to put in the work now.
And just to supplement that, going, ping-ponging with Megan here, I can't tell you the amount of people that have either emailed me or reached out to me on LinkedIn asking basically, what job openings do you have open that fit my skills? I don't know, go on our website and go find it. You still need to put in the work. Just because we're in a pandemic and it's virtual now, it's not a free pass. I'm still not sitting here giving out jobs and internships and co-ops. You still need to work for it. So absolutely, Megan, completely agree with you.
Does that research or that preparation for career fairs, what would be your advice to know when you come into a room? So Fall Career Days for everyone is obviously starting on Monday with the non-tech full-time day. And then Thursday next week will be the internship day. So most likely our liberal arts students are interested in both those. what should they be doing to prepare differently, and what just really looks the same?
Things I've been telling students, obviously they're going to get a list of the companies that are going to be there ahead of time. There's going to be a lot of companies there. Now that it's virtual, you can have so many. So they need to pick, 4 to 5 that they really want to talk to, and then, kind of tier structure it, A, B, and C. Who do I want to talk to? Who's my second? Who's my third? I've also recommended dressing the top and the bottom half of your outfits, because you never know what's going to happen. If you're going to have to get up in the last minute situation, no one wants to see what's happening on the bottom half of your screen. So just want to make sure that happens. Distraction-free environment. If you have a roommate, having a conversation with your roommate saying, hey, I kind of need the room clear. You don't want them walking around behind you, fresh out of the shower with a towel around their head or wrapped around their hair, or, kind of just moseying around. You want to make sure that there's no distraction, that the recruiter's paying attention to you and only you. And then I always tell them to have a printed copy of their resume out right in front of them. So if a recruiter, because I know on the Brazen platform, we get a chance to see your resume. So if the recruiter asks you a question, you're not stumbling through the platform trying to find your resume. It's right there in front of you and you can just look at it. Those are kind of like the biggest things I've been telling people in preparation, like cleaning up your room, making sure it's not messy, making sure there's nothing crazy on the wall behind you or something like that. So I've definitely seen a lot of different situations. I know with dorm rooms that you have a very limited space, and I totally understand that, but maybe kind of clean it up a little bit. That's just kind of like my biggest thing.
I think one thing is, and people touched on it, is the click through. So you are literally visiting a website that has all the information. When we're in person, there's a chance you could walk up to a table. You didn't have time to look up that company. You had the links, they're all there. So coming in, and one thing that I found today, speaking in a virtual fair, is a student read off the position description literally to me, and we have a time space that we're talking. So when you're in person, you can see there's a line of 10 people behind you and you feel rushed. It's timed. We don't have that much time with other people. So we may see we have people waiting. You might not see that. So really utilize the time you have. And also remember, follow-up is going to be super important in these situations. So follow the lead of the recruiter. This is what I tell people all the time. I don't use LinkedIn for hiring. We have systems that we're using. And so email, contact, those pieces, make sure you are listening to what the recruiter is telling you. Take notes, write them down of what those employers are telling you so you know how to follow up with them. If a recruiter gives you their email address or business card, follow up. Make sure you do that follow up. We have the access to do it as well, but taking the initiative is going to be really key. And also knowing that we're all in a learning curve here. We were talking about it prior to starting the panel, is we're learning and you're learning. So feel free to let the recruiter know of I saw this happen, or this is an issue, or like Megan was saying, if your roommate is getting back from work or somewhere, just say, hey, my roommate might come in at this time. Just give us, that heads up. I can tell you my dog right now, this is his crazy time. So he probably will whine. So I would let a student know between the times of 3 and 5, you might hear Oliver whine, and just give that heads up in a brief, amount of time, but kind of following as much as possible, following the lead of the recruiter.
Hi, everyone. This is Beth White from Kohl's, and I agree totally. Definitely to be prepared. Definitely your surroundings on camera, cleaning up. What Megan said, make sure your room's neat, or position your camera where, you can't see anything obscene or anything like that. Dress is very important. Eye contact, the engagement piece there. And also know about the company that you are interested in, their values, their culture, what they stand for, what they sell, make sure that you research that as well.
Coming into the Brazen platform, I know some of you have specific experience with it and others have other experience in the virtual career fair platforms. What does that initial contact look like And what are your expectations of students as they enter your booth?
I'm gonna go ahead and answer. I actually just had a Brazen event with Penn State through Lockheed Martin yesterday. It was a fairly large fair. If anybody attended the LM Day in past years, it was basically that, but virtual. But obviously we use Brazen. Off the bat, all of our employees ask if there's a chat to video preference. Obviously, right off the bat, video obviously stands out more. And again, I think what Beth was saying, know the products that we sell, just come in, doing your.
Sorry, Kelly. Still not.
How about now?
Yep.
I am so sorry. Just knowing the company's culture, knowing the company's values, just coming in and knowing what sense of direction. I can't stress that enough. Just knowing what you want out of your career, an objective, a goal. If it's as short term as this coming summer or as long term as maybe like a 5-year, 10-year track, just a sense of direction for where you want to go. Is just good tips in general, even in an in-person career fair, but especially with this virtual barrier, it speaks volumes to the character that the candidate or the student is. If you come into the Brazen, willing to speak to your resume, if I ask you questions about your experience or your capstone project or whatever it may be ready with stories and be ready, just be prepared, just be ready to speak to your experiences.
Have questions ready. Be able to have questions that you want to ask the employer. It's limited time. Like, don't ask, tell me about your company. We don't want to type that, and we don't want to say it in person 100 times, but we definitely don't want to say it typing. At least when we're in person, we can tell it to 7 people at a time. That's not the case. And so definitely have your question prepared, have some understanding of the organization, but also be mindful of, and I said this before, just of time, the time that you're taking, that you want to sell yourself in those couple minutes, but also be sure that you're there to gain more information as well. So you're there to learn. We're here to learn about both of you, but this is your first touch point. So you want to leave a mark that's a good mark that makes us want to continue to talk to you and continue to follow up.
Yeah, Alyssa, I think that's a really fantastic point about the questions, especially because as a recruiter in a platform like Brazen, we could be sitting at a virtual fair for 3-4 hours and not necessarily have a break in the conversation. So by asking really intelligent questions about the company, the role, different products can really help you stand out and make the conversations a bit more memorable for us when looking through candidates on the back end.
You only have like it's like 7 minutes, that first initial contact. And I thought 7 minutes would be long enough, but it's not in the long run, in my experiences with Brazen. So that 7 minutes is so crucial in that first contact with that recruiter, that they don't want to spend that first 7 minutes telling you what opportunities they have that may fit your degree or your experience. They want to spend that 7 minutes connecting with you and talking to you about something that's relevant to a job that you are looking for. So that's why you have to prepare, so that because I can tell you right off the bat, the career fairs I've been to, the students that stand out to me most recently virtually, is the first message is, "Good morning, it's so nice to meet you. Please tell me more about your management development program. I've done some research on it and I'd love to learn more about it." Bam, quick, easy. Now I know exactly what to talk to you about, and I can make that 7 minutes. As recruiters, we do get to extend the time by, a certain time length, just depending, but we want to get as much as we can out of that first 7 minutes and as quick as we possibly can, because you think 7 minutes is long, but it's really not when you have to type. If the student can't do video chat, it's a lot to type or copy and paste in there for you. So if the recruiter asks if you can do video, be open to the video. If you're not, that's fine. We completely understand, but just making sure that this is the easiest and quickest way for us to communicate with you.
I know I've worked with a couple of you in other panels, and even in-person fairs, the thought of an elevator pitch has changed. And I know at sometimes students can be very nervous and they just come up and kind of just word vomit everything they've been thinking for the last 30 seconds, and it doesn't feel very personable. I've heard some advice for students in Brazen to kind of have a Word document open with a generalized elevator pitch or introduction that they can kind of copy and paste into that intro or that hello. Are you okay with that? Or would you rather have something like Megan just mentioned of, because I know you get to see their resume. Do you really want them to take up that time giving a summary of themselves? Okay.
No.
Mhm.
We're gonna
Unless you're expecting us to just copy and paste all the answers, like I could just copy
Yeah,
and
you
paste,
could.
like this is city year, this is our job. That's not the conversation, and especially because it could be too long. If you said something that's really great, like save that verbiage, great to share, but I think copy and paste would be something I'd say, yeah.
Yeah, and you have to think about if you're typing and you're sending us two paragraphs to read, that's time eating up that we have to read that in order to figure out what we're going to do with the information that's given to us. We're probably all very efficient at typing, but everyone reads differently. So trying to read that really quickly and pick up what we need eats into that 7 minutes. Just always remember yourself when you're doing these career fairs, especially in Brazen, that first 7 minutes is so important.
If anything, I feel like it's less, if anything, I feel like just real quick, if anything, I feel like that quick copy and paste is even less personable than what Megan was saying earlier with that kind of like word vomit kind of stuff. So yeah, definitely focus on the first 7 minutes being like intelligible and asking very specific, intelligent questions. Definitely.
I'm going to use a template because I've been to a few fairs where I can tell that Career Services provided templates for students. Make sure you fill in the blanks before you send the templates. Proofread it before you send it to us, and things like that. I do understand, again, like Alyssa said, we're all learning, we're all trying to navigate this, and we understand mistakes are going to happen, and we're not asking you to be perfect, we're just asking you to proofread.
This is a good segue. It's very similar to what we're discussing. We have a student question. And again, if you have questions, please feel free to put them in the question and answer box. The question is, what should the ratio be between talking and listening at the fair and in networking in general?
I think that's a great question, but honestly, it just really depends. You should aim for 50% of listening, asking questions, and kind of a balance between you and the recruiter. But it definitely depends on the types of questions, the circumstance, how long you have together. Something where I think you'd have to really feel it out.
I completely agree. I think the most memorable interactions that I've ever had with students have been just conversations, just very two-sided, very even playing field. So if you go in relaxed and just treat it like a conversation, like you're talking to one of your buddies or roommates, obviously a little bit more appropriate, but just that relaxed feel, that atmosphere is what stands out to us most, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there is, a ratio between listening and talking. I think each interview and engagement interaction is going to be different.
Yeah, I agree as well. I think for career fairs, a lot of times career fairs, it's the recruiter that does a lot of the talking because we're trying to cover a lot of information in a short period of time, especially when we're in person and there's a line. But virtually now, we may not always be aware that there's a line or things like that, but there is a clock ticking down. So for career fairs, virtually, I do like to have a little bit of a conversation like, oh, how's school going? Like how, I just kind of want to, we're all trying to navigate this ourselves, myself working from home, and you're now either at school or at home doing virtual learning. So trying to break the ice, have a conversation. Yeah, you have 7 minutes, but it takes 30 seconds to a minute to have that conversation. And if you're prepared to ask a follow-up question, then a normal conversation is just going to flow. But I agree, like it depends on the event and the situation, but we're all working virtually, so you have to be able to create some sort of connection, like through your body language or through your hand gestures or things like that. And you have to have conversations where you do talk about how's everything going? How do you like recruiting virtually? How's school going? Like, are you able to like do any fun activities or socially distanced activities? We have to connect in some way because we're not in person. So
you have to kind of be open to that as well.
I would also say it needs to be active listening. You know, it needs, so often, even myself, you can get caught up with what you want to say next or what you want to make sure you cover. So to make sure you're hearing what the recruiter is saying. We've had a couple more questions come in. What appeals to you more, quantity of achievements on a resume or quality of a handful of them?
I was actually just in this circumstance today with our platform with Brazen yesterday. A Penn State student, we crashed. We had a huge crash with Brazen. It just shot out on us midway through the event. It was horrible. So somebody got my contact information, reached out to me, sent me their resume, and said, I'd love to talk to one of your, you know, I think it was radio frequency hiring managers, irrelevant, but they wanted me to put them in contact to who they were lined up to talk to. And after looking at their resume, they had a ton of social leadership points on their resume with a few lines and this much area of actual work experience that was applicable to the job. Whereas I've seen resumes with 2 or 3 pieces of experience, but a lot of really great quality.
I'm glad I could just shake my head and you know what that means. No.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry. Just really great quantifiable pieces relevant to their work experience that is relevant to the roles that I'm recruiting for that speak so many more volumes above, you know, your 12 leadership experiences with all these different clubs around campus. Like, obviously those are great. We like to see that you have leadership and social skills to communicate and organize these events, but I want to know about the, you know, the internship you did last summer or the co-op you went away to do or your study abroad and how those pieces of your experience also tie into where you want to go with your future career. So definitely less points, more quality, to answer your question.
The next question was, how should we follow up with recruiters? Are recruiters free to have 15-minute conversations, or would they prefer that we talk to professionals for more info? So I'm not clear on the question, but I guess let's talk about follow-up after the fair.
I think that's a good question to ask the recruiter you're talking to if you want to have additional conversations with them, like, how do I follow up with you? And a recruiter will tell you, I will email you in a week. You connect with me on LinkedIn, whatever that might be. Or they might say, look out for an email from me in the next however many days, and follow their lead. You have the ability, you're at a computer, to like send a thank you like 2 minutes after the conversation. Maybe wait an hour, you know, because we might not see it right away because we're kind of busy in a career fair. So use the time during the career fair to network with folks, even though you have the access to a computer. Send those follow-ups afterwards, but definitely follow the lead of the recruiter. And if they don't tell you, ask.
I also, to second that, I agree. And I also know with Brazen, if there is a time limit and you're kind of stuck in line and the fair's about to end, I know there's a feature in Brazen that you can message the booth owner so they can follow up with you, which is really awesome. So don't just leave the booth and be like, oh, it was over, I didn't really get to talk to you. Like, if you're still in that line, send them a message and then go to the next booth, because that feature is pretty awesome. Because what happens is, as the owner of the booth, we get all the emails. So we'll get an email and we'll follow up with you and say, hey, let's set up a quick chat where we can talk on the phone or via WebEx or however. But also with Brazen, we get to embed our LinkedIn profile. So we can't give you our business card, but I guarantee you probably at the end of every phone call or at the end of every chat, most of us always say, connect with us on LinkedIn. My profile is linked right here. And I can tell you, after every fair I've been to, I probably have had a lot of notifications. But like Alyssa said, taking note from the recruiter, but also making sure that if you do get stuck in line and the fair is about to end, send them a follow-up message, because they will follow up with you.
It's a feature, I think it's called Drop a Note or something of that nature. Make sure you're looking for all the students, careerfairs.psu.edu. there's a link into Fall Career Days, and that's where you're going to register and get to Brazen. There's a lot of tutorials and helpful tips there, and obviously heed everyone's advice today, but also take some ownership and really start to understand the Brazen platform. As Megan's saying, if the fair ends at 4, you can't decide to drop a note. You need to, it's completely going to shut down, except for those conversations that are still taking place live in the booth. So try to make sure you have time management with that as well.
And now that we've watched plenty of tutorials. I think I've watched probably 10 to 15 tutorials on Brazen to make sure that I know exactly what I need to do, because I don't want to miss a student wanting to talk to me because I didn't know how to work the platform. So don't think that that there's no sense in using the platform because you're tech savvy. Not every program is user friendly. So I think I've watched about 10 different, chat feature videos or things like that. So definitely do your research. I think, was there like a mock career fair you guys had, or did you guys host one?
Career Services is having Fall Career Days Expo yesterday and today, and then I believe some of the other academic colleges had mock fairs before their actual events.
The mock fairs are good if you were able to attend. That way you can kind of try, but if you can't, just definitely take our advice and watch the videos. It helps a lot.
Absolutely. I'm gonna I apologize to the student that put this question. I'm gonna manipulate this question a bit. And when it comes to the 15-minute conversations, I know we've alluded to the idea that is timed. I believe it's 8 minutes that you have with a recruiter. And I know we've mentioned that sometimes that can be extended. What would your advice be? I wouldn't want students saying to you, Megan or Katie, I'm almost out of time. Can you just extend it? Like, I want them to be focused on the time, but not ask for more time from you too. How would you suggest them?
Chances are, if we're in a conversation, it pops up in the chat. It kind of like notifies us. And depending on the chat, I'll extend it. Mostly every time I normally extend it by like 5 minutes just to give us more time, especially if like we're having issues with the video or we keep getting cut off or there's things going on or like it's just taking a lot longer for the student to maybe type or something like that. I'll definitely extend it. I've never had to have a student ask me for more time. Most of the time I always do extend it. I've never not extended the 7 minutes. I've always extended it, whether it be by 2 minutes or 5 minutes, just depending on, if we're wrapping up the conversation, but they still have a few questions, I'll extend it by like 2 minutes. But if we're heavily in conversation, I'll go to the 5 minutes. So I wouldn't necessarily be 100% worried about extending it, but I think it is completely fine to say like, hey, do you have like maybe like 2 more minutes to spare? I really have a few more questions. I know our time's running out. We can only extend the time one time. So once that one time is extended, then the conversation's done. But also if the conversation ends, you can still send us a message and it will show up in our follow-up items in Brazen. I know the conversation's ended and the student didn't get a chance to say goodbye or something like that. So I'll have a message of like, it was so great meeting you. Please follow up with me, things like that. So don't think that when the chat ends that you can't send one last message.
Good to know. I have one question in the, now I have two, but I'd like to make sure we get into a little bit of virtual interviewing as well. I'm monitoring our time. And the question is a little bit specific, but what would you all recommend a sophomore to look for? Full-time, part-time, or an internship?
It definitely depends on what the sophomore, what your career path, what you want it to look like, where you want to be, what industry you want to be in. For us, like we only hire rising juniors for internships. And so there's like very like specific requirements around that. But other companies do it differently. So doing your due diligence and researching, maybe you could do some volunteer opportunities for companies as well. Like that's great. But it really just depends on what you want and what companies are offering.
I agree with that, especially with sophomores. I know a lot of companies look for juniors, rising seniors, but because everything's virtual, I've been kind of giving the advice, take advantage of going to a career fair and talking to those big name companies that are like your dream companies, because it's all virtual. You get the chance to kind of shoot your shot essentially.
and get to know what they're looking for in interns and what their internship is like, so that when it is your time to go to the career fair, you're prepared skill-wise, things like that. But this is your chance to explore and kind of take that like nervousness out of it all and just kind of see what else is out there. Even you might find some companies that offer co-ops, which is, maybe a different set of an internship for sophomores. So definitely kind of seeing what's out there, but this is your chance to kind of go and explore and see what opportunities you have for yourself next year without the intimidation factor of standing in a line of 20 students for an hour in an uncomfortable outfit. So definitely I would heed the fact to like take advantage of it all being virtual right now. Yeah, I love that, Megan. Just making connections as early as possible is fantastic. A lot of us recruiters keep lists of candidates and keep pools, people who are graduating next year, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, people who've made an impact on us. And, also by connecting with us on LinkedIn, keeping us updated on what's going on with your internships or interests is huge. In addition, I know at Politico, we have a couple of ways to stay connected as well through like a talent community newsletter, through our Instagram for careers. So there's definitely ways you can stay in front and top of mind of employers.
Great.
Right, and I agree. I know Coles, we are focused on between junior and senior year, but definitely the more experience you can get with interviewing and making that the networking, it's all positive. You can't go wrong doing it. So definitely get yourself out there.
Great point, Beth. I think all experience is good experience. I think part-time work even is a great foundation of communication, organization, and time management skills. So definitely heed that advice as a sophomore. A student has asked, should we be connecting with the recruiter every time we apply to jobs? And I know that's going to have a similar answer of it depends, right? So.
It can't hurt.
I always welcome, right, and I always welcome, I give my card, I welcome if they need help with their resume, whatever they may need, they can email me at work. I mean, I'm a store manager, that's my primary job, and I also do, early talent for Coles as well. But, I can be a contact person, kind of like networking through Coles, but I can get them to the right people and give, if they want to practice interviewing on the side, whatever, I'm available for that. So
I think it depends also, but I agree with Katie and Beth, like it doesn't hurt because I may know somebody that you may want to connect with. So I may not have been able to help you or necessarily help you, or connect with you in a sense of like job opportunity wise, but I may be friends with somebody or connected with somebody that could help get you to the next step or a different step that you're looking for. So it's all kind of tied together, right? We're all in this big network of LinkedIn essentially, right? Because that's what it is. But, it's a big saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I think that's a very big portion as well. It's why networking events are very important. So that's why it's like, well, I know Megan and I know she can help me with a few things, but she's also connected to this person, because I meet recruiters all the time through all of my, different events and things like that. So then we become connected, which then helps you become connected. So don't be I've been telling students, this is your chance to get the job that you want. Be selfish, connect with people that you've never connected with, make those connections, because the older you get and it's going to become a little bit harder. Right now you have the chance to just spread your net as wide as you possibly can and make connections and see where they go and take you. So don't be afraid to hit the connect button, and always just send a message saying, hey, I see you know so-and-so. I'd really love to talk to you about a few things. There's nothing wrong with that. It makes the connection a little bit more solid.
Just on the back of what Megan was saying, just be more intelligent about it and be smart about it too. I had a student apply to one of my open jobs, and instead of just, contacting anybody within my team, they just did a very broad search on LinkedIn and contacted everybody, like 50 plus recruiters. basically saying like, do you know there's a recruiter for this job? If so, get me in touch with their manager. So definitely don't do that. But just be smart about it, right? Don't be afraid to make those connections, but be professional. There you go. Be professional and be smart about it. Definitely don't be broad and be bold in that sense. Be smart.
And that's why we have these events. It's for you to feel comfortable going to Megan, at the Geico booth, or Alyssa at the City Year booth, and having those conversations. There are 160 plus information sessions in Nittany Lion Careers right now. And I guarantee that they are all occurring in the next 3 to 4 weeks, because it's just the time of the year. So it's, someone mentioned earlier, I think Katie did, they're keeping lists of people that come to those events too, and you're getting more of that connection. So while it's helpful to reach out to a recruiter on LinkedIn, it's also helpful to take advantage of the resources at Penn State with the career events in place. So going into, the effects of COVID lately, someone has asked, what are your takes on people who do not have internship experience due to a COVID cancellation?
I think it's the time, right? Like, we understand that some companies could have an internship and some companies couldn't. I think it's how you sell what you did next after that. I think that's the big point. Like, yes, I was lined up to have an internship, but I didn't, but this is what I did instead in the time that I had at COVID, right? We've all been at home trying to figure out different things. Maybe you started reading about different topics or expanding your network, or you started attending virtual events during the summer or something like that. It's how you chose to spend that time that benefited your resume, essentially. That's how I would assume, that's how I would spin it, because we're all dealing with, I know Geico, we didn't have an internship this past summer, and I know a lot of our interns, found different opportunities or other things like that. But they still stayed in touch, and I always follow up and say, oh, hey, what'd you end up doing? And they'll tell me, and it's really great to hear how they sell it. So that would just be my take on it.
I couldn't agree more. How did you react in the face of adversity? And how did you react to change? And sell that. And if you could do that, you're golden.
Absolutely. So I'm going to pivot a little bit into the virtual interviewing space. I know that we've been doing that even before COVID. Can you all share some helpful advice for students to prepare for some of, we know recorded interviews exist, Zoom interviews exist. What are some helpful advice for our students to prepare and handle those different avenues?
Yeah, I think a lot of it includes things we've already touched upon here. So making sure you're professionally dressed. You have your elevator pitch ready. You know why you want to be at X company and what you can bring to the company. And there's some other basic things like lighting. Make sure you have lights around you, that you have a stable internet connection if possible, a backup, like maybe your phone is next to you in case you have to join the Zoom that way. So just kind of thinking of every worst case scenario like that and preparing it for it. I think at least at Politico, we are trying to be as flexible and understanding as possible, but it is tough when you pull together this director and that director for an interview and then, oh, we can't do it because of an internet issue. So just really trying to work through that early on is important.
A big thing I've touched on is professional body language. Via the camera, I know I probably speak for a lot of us when I say learning to talk to the web camera and not your picture on the screen is a lot harder than you think. So learning how to kind of make that eye contact, but also learning how to present yourself when you're sitting here. I know it's comfortable to sit in your chair back like this, but it makes a whole different meaning when you sit forward. Your hands are, you're kind of sitting like you would if you were to be sitting in an interview chair. We all understand everyone's home and they're very, relaxed, and we have a more relaxed environment. But when it comes time to your interview, we need to treat it as if you were just like you were if you came into our office. And again, making that, connection with the person that's interviewing you. So, keeping it very topic neutral and
general topics like how's everything going, how are you adjusting to recruiting or interviewing virtually or things like that, like kind of breaking the ice to kind of open that line of communication up, because we know the interview can be very kind of sometimes process driven a little bit, and so you have to create that connection.
I would just add something an English teacher told me in high school is don't read in bed for school, because then you're all associated with bed. Please don't do an interview from your bed. If you have to do something to make it look like it's not your bed, I don't know what that is, but sit in a chair if you have a chair. We don't want to see pillows. We don't want to see that. We want you to be comfortable, but professionally comfortable. With that, there was something else that you said, Megan, that I was going to piggyback on, but I don't remember now. Is just make sure you're professional and make sure you're there. Also, if you know, like what Katie was saying about internet, if you know you're having internet issues, let the recruiter know at the beginning, let the person you know say, like, there's a storm coming. Hopefully everything will be okay. If not, this is what's happening on that end. And make sure that you give yourself time before. So don't schedule an interview at 3 o'clock when your class ends at 3 o'clock. Make sure you schedule it after, because you're jumping from one to the other. And I think the other is our comfort level. Like, you've been to a bridal shower, you've been to a happy hour, and you're now at a job interview all on Zoom. Remember, they are each different things. You look the same, so make sure your name is changed to what you want it to be. But also remember that the same platform is being used for multiple different things. Put yourself into that space like you're, an actress or an actor, and put yourself in that, on that stage, and be there. And remember, you're not at a happy hour.
To piggyback off that, I know from speaking in LA 103 that Career Services does have Penn State themed Zoom backgrounds. So to offset the fact, if you didn't have time to necessarily 100% deep clean your room and make it presentable, or there's just a few things that you would prefer not to have shown, I know I think there's like a huge array of ones to choose from. Use those. They're given to you for free, which I think is awesome. I think one of them is of the stadium in the middle of a football game, which is pretty cool. Probably not use that one. But I know they have like a plain blue one with PSU written all over it. I know they have a lot of different options. We kind of went through them all when I was in the class. But use those options, because what if you didn't have chance? Like she said, if the interview's at 3 o'clock and your class, you plan to get, class is supposed to get out and you're late, you don't have time to get ready, you can throw that, Penn State background on and boom, you're ready to go.
And I hope this real quick, I hope this would go without saying to everybody who's dialing in, viewing this. But on the career fair yesterday, I had people, very mobile with their laptop, just thinking it was a phone, like on FaceTime or anything like that. So just make sure it's on a level ground. You're not picking it up. It's just flat and level and stabilized the entire time, which I thought went without saying, but I guess not.
I agree with everything. Very, very good information for students. One thing that is my pet peeve, and it happens all the time, is cell phones. Please make sure they're silent. It's very distracting if you're having conversation with someone and a buzzer goes off or a song starts playing or what have you. So just make sure that's prep to make sure that's silent.
As silly as this sounds, I was in a career coaching appointment last week, and I had a student who had to leave because his French toast was burning on the stove. So don't leave the stove on, right? Is there any other advice you all have for virtual interviewing? Maybe some common mistakes. I know we've given some strong suggestions, but any suggested questions to prepare for differently in the virtual setting? Any other common mistakes you're seeing? Anything else to add on that? I don't want to kick it too much, but
I think one, and we said it was mentioned some like during the conversation, don't use other things on your computer. So like if you're meeting with, there's 4 people from the company that you're having an interview with, don't Google John Smith while you're in the interview. You wouldn't be able to do that if you were in an office. Try not to do it there. I know it's easy. Like I have multiple things around me I could be touching and using and doing. But just try not to click around on those other pieces. If you get that email that comes in of like, I need this by this time, you know, ignore it, leave it be, but definitely do your research before. And I think even more so now, you get all the information. Like, these are the 5 people that will be on your interview. Look up those people. You can do that before, where sometimes when you walk into an office, someone else pops in, you don't know them. Get that information ahead of time.
I have a student question. They've asked, what are some of the more interesting questions you have been asked during an interview?
I've been asked some COVID-19 related questions, like what does working from home look like, and things like that, which I think are pretty standard kind of right now, which I'm used to. But I think a lot of students aren't prepared for the answer, as the answer is undetermined, or we're not really sure what it's going to look like when you get hired. So I think students have to prepare themselves for an answer that isn't cut dry. Like I know us, you know, our new hires, they come into the office for one day and then they are working from remotely, but the next coming months, they may be back in the office. We're just not 100% sure. So I think when you do ask those questions about everything that's going on, students need to be prepared for an answer that isn't necessarily, that's going to change. You know, at the time the recruiters say, I'm not really sure, we're looking to do this, but I can't be 100%. They need to be prepared for either or, whether it's a job they really want and they're not comfortable working in the office, they need to be prepared for the chance that they may not be able to work from home and they may have to go back to the office based on the company guidelines. So I think they just have to be prepared for an undecided answer at that point.
Yeah, I mean, a Candace question, these are typically my favorite part of the interview because I can see what you actually care about and what you're interested in, and it shows me a bit of your personality as well. So I can't think of any interesting questions off the top of my head, but definitely when thinking through questions ahead of time, what do you care about the most? Do you want to know about a company's diversity and inclusion policies? Do you want to know about growth? Like, just really think through those thoughtful questions, and that will really drive a more natural conversation with a recruiter or hiring manager.
And I think, to Katie's point, some of the best questions are not the ones you prepared ahead of time. It's the one of, I heard you say this. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about that, or why is that the case? But at that active listening and going off of that, it goes miles.
Well, we have 3 minutes left. So with that said, you know, we mentioned a little bit about this throughout the presentation, in between virtual career fairs, virtual interviewing, and then of course networking on a different level. What are some of your thoughts on dealing with tech issues, and how understanding are you? I'm sure, I know all of you are very understanding, but how would you like a student to handle that with you? And what is a tech issue for you?
We send pretty detailed instructions of what you should be doing before the interview to prep. So try to follow those instructions, you know, anything from testing out this platform beforehand with this test username to logging on 10 minutes early. And we take that seriously just so we can try to work through any tech issues right before the interview.
So
I'll answer this question and address the elephant in the room. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Katie, you've given the details, so it's expected that they put the work into it and not make excuses later.
Yeah, and if things go wrong, we can always reschedule. But like if there is an issue 10 minutes before, like I've let candidates know just to give me a call and we'll figure out an alternative. So don't panic. Everything's going to work out.
Sorry.
Yeah, I agree. Like panicking is not going to do you any good. Obviously, I've had tech issues with audio issues like all throughout this call. I've used Zoom for my work laptop before. I'm not really sure what's going on. But, you know, unexpected things could just pop up all the time. So I'm more forgiving and understanding of things happening during the platform or during the meeting, interview, whatever, than if you tell me 10 minutes before you suddenly don't know how Wi-Fi works. You know, just prepping as much as you can beforehand, and whatever happens during happens. I hope everybody, you know, both ways would be understanding, because we could.
Yeah, and on that, I think the reverse, like I've had someone like almost laugh at me of like, well, I didn't hear your question. Instead of just saying, would you mind repeating that? And it was almost like your call dropped and it turned me off. Like I was not interested in what he was answering the actual question because he was like, clearly there was something happening with my phone. But like just saying like there seems to be a connection issue, address it. At some point, if that's a problem, or just set, let them know. But also just know that it's going to happen. It can happen on both ends. Like we're all, it's the same as like, I don't know, a window could break in a building, except we're dealing with this virtual space. So yes, give grace to everyone, and address it if it needs to be addressed, but also, like tell Kelly her sound isn't working, and she can figure it out.
I think that one of the biggest things is to have patience. I know technology right now can be very frustrating on both ends. I promise you, if you're having issues and we're having issues, being frustrated and, like Kelly was saying, being upset it's not going to do anything, but you have to have patience, because whether we're trying to figure it out or, we're trying to get it rescheduled or figure out what the issue is, there always has to be patience, especially when you're going to attend a virtual career fair. You have to understand that it could get overloaded and, things may fail. So like making sure that you bring your patience, because it's all new. We're all adjusting. And so that's kind of on both ends. You both just have your patience, make sure you're prepared, because if you sign in 10 minutes early and something's going wrong, you can contact your recruiter before your interview, because we would much rather know before your interview something's wrong than the time of your interview.
I would also say that your reaction is part of the interview, right? How you're handling, how you're problem solving and how you're handling technology, because we know you're going to be needing to pivot and handle in that role. Whatever you're applying for, it's going to be technology based. So just be cautious of your reaction as well. It used to be etiquette, right? And how you reacted if you went out to dinner or lunch and how you treated a server. And now here we are in the technical area. So I'm seeing some of our recruiters adding their contact information to the chat. So if anyone wants to add on to that for our students that are still in attendance, Stacy Hoffman also added the email or the website address to the career fairs page that I alluded to earlier for those tutorials for fall career days. Again, that event begins next week on Monday. So make sure you are registering through Brazen beforehand, and then ready to go with your research, I would say, over the weekend. Thank you all for joining us yet again. We appreciate your participation and your own pivot in our recruiting and programming world. And I really wish we were all in person. So I appreciate your time and connecting with our students through directly. Okay. This will be available for as a recording. So students who weren't able to make it, or those of you who maybe joined us late, will be able to see it in its entirety later on. Okay. All right. Thank you all so much. It was great to see you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Bye.